It's that time of day in the evening. It's time for Whirlpool Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Dell. We've seen 6 teams already make an appearance in this year's tournament. We've seen so much happen in the first 3 days itself. So heaven knows what will happen when the Rajasthan Royals finally make their appearance. The Chennai Super Kings are in action in what will be the first game at Sharjah in this year's tournament. And joining me on the pre-show, it's a warm welcome back to Gautam Gambhir, who was with us on the opening day. Deep Das Gupta is there as well. And there is so much drama and there's so much event in the IPL, and we haven't even got to the fixture that last season saw MS Dhoni walk onto the field in sheer dismay of umpiring decisions. I hope we get something slightly on that note, because that will be fitting for Gautam Gambhir's 5 rand appearance. And here he is now, Gautam. Chennai, we know what to expect from them. We can never rule them out. And on the other hand, we have Rajasthan Royals, who seem to be the kind of team that everyone wants to sort of go below and wants to underestimate. They could spring in a surprise or two. Gautam, I need you to just unmute yourself somehow. Yeah, I think I've got you now. No one can keep you quiet. Yeah, off you go.
You can.
Only when we're talking football, not cricket. Never cricket. All right, let's go. Rajasthan Royals. What do you make of Rajasthan Royals? They seem to be the kind of team people tend to underplay or underestimate.
Oh, exactly. I think they've been underdogs since first year of the IPL, and they've been champions once. But yes, obviously they've not been that consistent. But look at Rajasthan Royals. If they have players like Butler, Stokes, Jofra Archer, Steve Smith, you can never underestimate them. They can actually surprise any of them. And I've been saying it year after year that you can't actually predict a winner in IPL. Any franchise can beat anyone. So today also, probably a lot of people will not give any chance to Rajasthan Royals, but they can actually easily surprise Chennai Super Kings today as well.
What a story, what a good point Gautam makes. They gave us that thrilling first ever IPL final, Deep, and they were underdogs then. 10 years on, Chennai have become a powerhouse, or 12, 13 years on, Chennai are a powerhouse, but Rajasthan are still the underdogs. Here they are now starting their campaign with what? 3 players played their 2008 final, only the 3 players that survive in today's game, all 3 from Chennai. And here we are now against what should be a formidable team. Do you agree with Gautam, though, that they are the kind of team that can surprise?
That can surprise. There's a difference between winning a tournament and surprising sides. So in this format, anyone can surprise. And they're a good side. Let's not forget that. They are a good side. But yes, the biggest challenge as of now is how do you get this whole team going in the absence of Ben Stokes and Josh Butler? And as a squad, yes, they are a good squad. There's no 2 ways about it. But yes, this is going to be their first challenge, the first hurdle this year.
Let's get straight into that discussion then. We know that Chennai won the toss. If you're following your feed wherever you are, you know that they're going to have a bowl first again. So that works perhaps to MS Dhoni's advantage. But that's the big question. How do Rajasthan cope without Joss Butler and Ben Stokes? And Gauti, we know that they've gotten a Tom Curran and a David Miller as replacements for that role. But when you start a new season, you've got two massive overseas players. The feeling is that, we've got some real gun overseas players, and two of them then go missing for the first game. Does that in any way have some kind of effect on the team ahead of an opening game?
See, a wounded lion is always very dangerous, no doubt about it. But I think Rajasthan will miss Josh Butler more than Ben Stokes. If you see, I'm not going to take anything away from Ben Stokes. He's probably the best all-rounder in the world right now. But he hasn't done enough for Rajasthan in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
If you see his performances, not taking anything away from his quality, but yes, look at Josh Butler, what he's done for Rajasthan, and look at what Ben Stokes has done. So probably if they miss out on someone, it's going to be Josh Butler because he can win you a game single-handedly. Ben Stokes hasn't done that in the last 2 years. In fact, he actually, when he bowled the last over against Chennai Super Kings last time around, he actually lost the game
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, fair point. The numbers for Ben Stokes that stand out are that season that he had with RPS. Since he's gone to Rajasthan with bat or ball, they don't quite match up. But then Ben Stokes is a different player, it seems, deep in the last 2 years. He could do no wrong. He won England the World Cup. He played the most incredible test knock you'd see in recent times. And perhaps this was the year they wanted him. But you agree with Gautam. The bigger loss today is Josh Butler?
Oh, yes, there's no two ways about it. Again, going by stats and numbers, yes, Josh Butler, obviously, and also the kind of form that Josh Butler is in. I mean, his series against Australia was magnificent. So obviously, with the current form and the quality that he has, he definitely will miss Josh Butler more than anyone else. Ben Stokes, again, yes, he hasn't contributed much for Rajasthan Royals, but yes, last year and a half, he's kind of come leaps and bounds in terms of bat and ball. So yes, I mean, if RR really wanted Ben Stokes any year, it would have been this one. But yeah, hopefully keeping our fingers crossed that he'll join them sooner or later.
Yeah, I mean,
see, Ronald, I just want to add, it's just the pressure of expectation as well on Ben Stokes. When he plays for England, he knows that he's got so many other quality players as well. And the price tag. Price tag is a huge pressure. You know that the franchise expects you to win 4 or 5 games on your own with your bowling, batting, fielding. When you're not able to do that, when you don't deliver that, the pressure keeps increasing and you want to get yourself retained every year and you want the same price tag as well. So it's difficult when you play international cricket because you know that people know that you've done it year after year. You've done it consistently for your country. So the expectation is there's still the time you don't do it for your franchise. People will never consider you. Yes, you will always be considered as a great international cricketer, but franchise cricket is very different to international cricket. When a corporate runs it, he wants performance. As simple as it gets. It's more ruthless than international cricket, to be honest.
Yeah. Sign of a good team is how they cope without these players. It could happen through injury. It could happen through any reason. And let's have a look at the Rajasthan 11 to see what that balance is in the absence of Josh Butler as well as Ben Stokes. Thankfully, Stephen Smith is fine. There was a bit of worry about a concussion injury being carried forward from the series in England. But he's fit and returns as a full-time captain now for the Royals. Robin Uthappa plays. Now, we've listed him as wicketkeeper as well. So that adds some more balance to that team. Yashasvi Jaiswal, so highly rated, gets Rajasthan Royals debut. Sanju Samson's there. David Miller is the overseas recruitment from Kings 11 Punjab after having spent 9 seasons there. Riyan Parag, Shreyas Gopal, Jofra Archer, Jaydev Unadkar all picked themselves. Gautam will be very pleased to see Rahul Tewatia in that team too. And Tom Curran, you think, is the obvious replacement for Ben Stokes. They've reinforced quite strongly, Gautam, you think, with the acquisition of Robin Uthappa, Rahul Tewatia. You like the look of that team?
Probably, I definitely would have liked Manan Bora there in place of Jaiswal. He's a talented guy, but then obviously IPL is a different ball game altogether. And Manan Bora has proved it when he played for Kings 11. He's a fabulous T20 cricketer. So I think yes, they've gone with a young blood, so hopefully he succeeds. But yes, Rahul Tewatia just gives him that balance. He gives you those couple of overs of wrist spin. He bats at number 7, gives you those quick fire 15-20 runs. So overall, letting go of Ajinkya Rahane, getting Robin Uthappa is probably a blessing in disguise for someone like Rajasthan Royals, because Robin Uthappa, if he comes good, especially at the top of the order, makes life much more easier for someone like Josh Butler, because we had seen Josh Butler under a lot of pressure when he opened with someone like Ajinkya Rahane, because you expected him to use that first 6 overs. But with Robin Uthappa, if he is in really good form, Josh Butler actually can play a longer inning and actually can win you more games as compared to what he's done till now with Rajasthan Royals.
Yeah, you look at Yashasvi Jaiswal, Deep. Of course, Gautam makes the point. Manan Bora's experienced player. Yashasvi gives them a left-hand option, but here's a kid who hasn't even played T20 cricket, albeit although the other formats that he plays, he tends to play like T20 cricket. But we haven't
Yeah.
seen Yashasvi Jaiswal in any T20 cricket just yet. Big ask for him to step out on the opening day.
It is, but if I mean from a franchise perspective, if you want to be in, I mean, if you're a youngster and you want to start off, I mean, this is a great franchise to be in. As you've mentioned right at the top, that they're still the underdog, so it is kind of easier, comparatively easier to make your debut there. And listen, he's a quality player. There's no two ways about it. In terms of quality, we've seen it in during under 19 or whatever cricket that we've seen him play. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of happy that he's getting a go as well, because we've already seen a couple of youngsters already have made their mark in this IPL. Could be a good opportunity for him as well, because it should be a good surface to bat on.
Yes, Gautam.
See, I don't see him as a long term, honestly, especially this year. I don't see him as a long term solution to Rajasthan, because once Jose Butler comes in, they got to open with
Right.
Jose Butler. And where are they going to? Because they will have Ryan Parag, they will have someone like Rahul Tewatia to give them that balance. So hopefully he can use this opportunity and show the world that what he's capable of. And I'm sure that he's got to be there for a long time with the franchise. But probably this season, it's got to be difficult, because this season is all about probably getting that experience of what it is about IPL, and probably a cricket higher than what he's played.
Just last word on Rajasthan before we move to Chennai. Robin Uthappa, you think his best position, Gautam, is to open, even though when Josh Butler is available, maybe there'll be a different role for him. You have Uthappa there now. You have Samson, who we know likes opening. Even if he comes in at 3, that pushes Steve Smith to 4, where again you think Smith is ideally suited to number 3. Just thoughts of that. Is there still a conversation of that being a little top heavy?
See, my point is that if I see this playing 11, where do you fit Robin Uthappa? Because they will
Right.
play Ryan Parag as an all-rounder. They will play Rahul Tewati as an all-rounder. So Robin, if they have to play Robin Uthappa, they will have to open the batting. Yes, I was actually thinking of Jaws Butler, Manan Vora, but then I actually had left out Ryan Parag. If they've shown so much of trust in Ryan Parag, so Robin has to open, and probably that is a position he loves as well. So great opportunity for someone like him to actually open the batting. And obviously, last time when he played for KKR, he didn't get that opportunity. He opened with me, but then this is a fabulous opportunity in a franchise which gives you a longer run. So hopefully, he can make the most of it and try and probably win a couple of games for the franchise. So for Robin at the top of the order with the current playing 11.
Deep?
Yeah, if I may quickly add, I think this year if Robin has to play regularly, and I think it's not a bad option also to make him bat in the middle order, because as soon as Josh Butler comes in, obviously he comes in place of an overseas, and that overseas could be David Miller. So he comes in place of David Miller, and Josh Butler goes at the top of the innings. Obviously, there's another thought of making Josh Butler bat in the middle order, which I completely don't agree with.
You have a lot of high words of praise for a player like Robin Uthappa Gautam, for a player like Piyush Chawla, and we've already seen the Chawla decision vindicated. Chennai picked him up for good money, and he had a massive performance. Both these players left by KKR. Now Uthappa has been such a big player for KKR, didn't have the best of seasons last year. And there was, of course, that game that he struggled in towards the end of the season. But was that a bit of a surprise to you as well? The fact that he was let go off, and now here he comes to Rajasthan team, and you seem to suggest that makes the team stronger.
See, Robin, that's the difference between CSK and KKR. That's the difference between a successful franchise who's won it 3 times and a franchise which has won in 2014. Look at
Yeah.
how MS Dhoni backs his players. Look at what he's done with Shane Watson. He actually backed him throughout the season, and eventually, when it mattered the most, it came off. Even
Yeah.
this year, he's going to back him. You can have bad seasons, but you can't just get someone out of the franchise just by one bad season. You got to see the overall picture as well. And Robin Uthappa, till he plays, he will always be a force to reckon with. So again, like what I said about Piyush Chawla, someone's probably leaving out someone is someone else's gain. It's exactly the same with Robin Uthappa as well, because you've let go of someone with experience, with that quality of playing those big shots. Probably it's a gain for someone like Rajasthan Royals, because they've let go of Ajinkya Rahane and got Robin Uthappa, which makes them much more stronger. Because
Yeah.
Robin, I'm sure, as I just mentioned it to you, if he starts off really well, he can win you a couple of games on its own, and that's what he did in 2014 with KKR as well. Look at the season he had, more than 600 runs. Yes, it could be hot and cold, but you can't just judge a player by one single year. So someone's loss is someone's gain.
Yeah, fair enough. There is one big loss for Chennai Super Kings to contend with today. Ambati Raidu is not fully fit, so he played one hell of an innings on the opening day against Mumbai. That's taken a serious toll out of him. He misses out, not fully fit. But there is a debut for Ruturaj Gaikwad, so highly rated, the second highest run getter in the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy, second only to Devdutt Padikkal. And Padikkal made quite an appearance yesterday. So here you have Ruturaj Gaikwad now with an opportunity to fill in against fairly big shoes of Ambati Raidu, and no other changes in that team. We're wondering if there'd be room for a Shardul Thakur, whether they'd want to try and add another bowling option, if at all. And Sam Curran's excellent form that first game has Stephen Fleming said they don't need to rush Dwayne Bravo back. But that's the only team. Deep, your thoughts? A big miss, Ambati Raidu, but a great opportunity for Ruturaj Gaikwad.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no two ways about it. I mean, obviously, after whatever's been, happening with him, I'm so glad that he's not only recovered but is playing today. Unfortunately for Ambati Raidu and also for CSK, because the kind of form that he showed in the last game, it's not just about getting runs, but the maturity that he showed, the sense of responsibility that he showed. I think that was very, very heartening. So they're going to miss him for sure. The kind of experience that he has. In the absence of Suresh Raina in that batting order, they will definitely miss him. But yeah, good opportunity for Rituraj. Very good batsman, again a very talented batsman. Has got a lot of runs in domestic cricket. It'll be interesting to see where they bat him. Do they bat him in the top order, or do they slate him at number 4 or something? Because looking at that playing 11, his name's mentioned at number 4, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes up the order and Faf bats at 4 or something like that. That's something that we need to watch out for.
Does open for Maharashtra in T20 cricket, of course, but you have enough opening options. There's Shane Watson, there's Murli Vijay, Fab du Plessis as well. But Gautam, to carry that conversation on, that's a big miss, Ambati Raidu, and you've got a specialist opening bat, young fellow, though I guess the demands of T20 cricket are such that you've got to be ready to bat anywhere.
Exactly. And at the same time, it's a good opportunity because you've already won the first game. So there will be less pressure. Imagine if you would have not won the first game, there would have been more pressure on a young kid. So I'm sure he's going to cherish this opportunity. And plus, I think with him, there'll be a little bit of more pressure on Murli Vijay as well, because he's someone who bats at the top of the order as well. So Murli Vijay needs to make his opportunity count, because if Rituraj has a decent outing today, and if Murli Vijay doesn't get you runs, so probably it'll be a direct swap between Murli Vijay and then Rituraj Gaikwad, and then Ambati Raidu comes in his possession at number 4. So probably there's a little bit of pressure on someone like Murli Vijay as well, with Rituraj coming into the playing 11.
Right, that's fair point. So you'll have to keep your eye out and see how Rituraj Gaikwad goes. The other concern after that first game, Deep and Gautam, I'll come to you first, Deep, was just the 5 bowling options for CSK. We know that Kedar Jadhav is hardly ever bowled in the IPL, even though he is used frequently in ODI cricket when he was part of the Indian team. Is that still a concern for you, having exactly 5 bowling options?
Yes, it still is. But if you if you look at that batting order, you have Deepak Chahar batting at number 10, right? So you have batting, and Deepak can bat. You have Piyush, who can bat. Sam Curran can bat. Jadeja has been in phenomenal batting form. So maybe they are just playing with one extra batsman, is what I think. They can actually go for someone. And there are quite a few out there who can actually bat as well. For example, Shardul Thakur, you mentioned, he's not a bad bat at all. So, you would have kind of had another bowling option without really compromising too much. And this surface, which is, the highest scoring venue in UAE. So you might want to go with another bowling option. Kedar Jadhav, yes, is definitely a bowling option. No two ways about it. But maybe they're just going with too heavy batting lineup is what I reckon.
Do you agree with that, Gautam? Shardul Thakur could have been a case for him, and maybe a batter short, especially at Sharjah, where we know the numbers are significantly better in terms of run scoring.
Ronak, I really want to know whether Shane Watson actually can give you a couple of overs.
I don't think he's bowled in the last BPL or in the PSL when he played.
He's bowled in the last IPL for sure, but if he can give you a couple of overs, it just sort your 6th bowling option out. And with Kedar Jadhav, if he can give you 1 over, so probably they've got enough, depending if Shane Watson, because he actually can give you 1 or 2 overs. So yes, obviously they're a little thin on their bowling with only 5 bowlers, depending if your 6th bowler is Kedar Jadhav. If he comes against someone like Robin Uthappa, or for that matter Steve Smith, I'm sure they're going to take him on. But then yes, that is how MS Dhoni has always captained the side. He's always actually given a lot of confidence to his bowlers rather than going with too many options. So depending, what kind of a fitness is Shane Watson in?
If memory serves me right, when it really comes to a crunch situation, if he can't go back to a Jadeja or a spinner, MS Dhoni has given the ball to Shane Watson. Maybe not last year, but perhaps the year before that, he did do that in one IPL game. So, okay, there is that. You can consider that in your calculations that we still have Shane Watson as an option for CSK. The other conversation around Rajasthan Royals is the fact that Steve Smith is now back as full-time captain, and that is a very delicious conversation for me because it seems like captaincy brings out the best in certain players, Gotham. And you may argue sometimes, does Steve Smith make your ideal T20 11? Certainly the Australian side, but in the IPL as an overseas batsman, is he your ideal T20 overseas option? By making him captain, you answer that question for you. We look back to the year with RPS. He was a different player when he was captain in the second season of RPS rather than the first. So what can we expect from a Steve Smith as captain? Do you think it's a move in the right direction for the Royals?
I don't think so. I don't see him in the as my four overseas players. To be honest, I would have given captaincy to Josh Butler, and I would have had Josh Butler, Ben Stokes, David Miller, and Jofra Archer. Because if I compare Steve Smith to someone like David Miller can hurt you more because you've got someone like Sanju Samson who can bat at number three and then obviously can anchor the inning as well. Just because you've made him the captain, you have to play him in all the games as well. He still has a lot to prove in T20 cricket. So I personally feel that if I would have been there, I would have actually given it to either Josh Butler or Ben Stokes, and then probably would have rotated my four overseas players depending on the form between Steve Smith and David Miller.
Yeah, this is the interesting conversation, Deep, isn't it? When you make an overseas player captain, you're almost obligated to always play him, unless he's an absolute short shot. A David Warner, for instance, for the
Yeah.
Sunrise, would play every game. You're going to look at
Josh Butler, Ben Stokes.
yeah. You've got two guys who would be a walk-in into that team. Now, if you
So
want to
what-
change it up,
Yeah,
Smith,
my take is a little different here. My take is this: for especially for someone like Rajasthan Royals, I think he's a very good mentor. He's someone who loves talking about the game. He's 24/7 into the game, so he's a good mentor. He's a good leader as well. Now, talking about him as a purely as a batsman, forget his captaincy and leadership aside. Now, I understand and agree with what Gautam just said. If you're looking at 180 kind of a surface and 180 kind of a match, would you want him? Maybe not. But if you're looking at 150, 160 kind of a game, I think he still adds a lot of value to the side. High scoring games, maybe he does still hasn't proved himself that way in T20 cricket. But when on these surfaces, you're expecting to start off with maybe, let's say, 165, 170, then sooner or later that average score will come down to 150 odd. And I think that 150 odd games, he still adds a lot of value as a batsman also.
See,
Alright.
I just want to add something. The point, if you end up making Steve Smith as a captain, the thing is, then if all the players are available, then David Miller misses out throughout the tournament because then he will never fit in. So that's the reason, because Josh Butler for me is probably the best T20 cricketer in the world right now on current form. Jofra Archer, he's probably one of the best white ball bowlers. Ben Stokes, you push him in any of the playing 11s in any of the franchise as well. So depending on the form between Steve Smith and David Miller, I would have actually thought on those lines of giving it to someone like Josh Butler.
Okay, two conversations. There's one, actually the Rajasthan squad options, and second, the whole point of making an overseas guy captain. I'll come to that second part later. But we're talking about the options that Rajasthan have, Gautam. David Miller, after 9 seasons, moved from Punjab. Correct me if I'm wrong, if it's an unfair statement, that he hasn't quite been a successful player for Punjab in the IPL. Here he comes to Rajasthan now. Are you really, do you believe a player like Miller would add more value than a player like Smith to the Rajasthan team?
See, again, my point is that where do you want to push him? Where do you want to bat him? Steve Smith
Right.
cannot bat beyond number 4. David
Yes.
Miller, you can actually put him at number 5, number 6 as well. And he obviously, Steve Smith is a much better player of spin bowling as compared to someone like David Miller as well. But when you've got people like Robin Uthappa, when you've got people like Sanju Samson, with Steve Smith there at number 3, you're only pushing someone like Sanju Samson at number 4. And you want to give Sanju Samson a go at number 3. And that's the reason why I'm saying that if you have someone like Josh Butler, you can actually have David Miller batting at number 6, and then obviously it gives you that firepower in the last 3 or 4 overs where someone can get you 3 overs 50. What Stoinis did to someone like Chris Jordan. David Miller can exactly do the same to other opponents as well, but I'm sure Steve Smith cannot, and Ryan Parag cannot, or for example, some of the Rahul Tavatia cannot. But yes, David Miller, I still remember what he did to RCB. Yes, he's never had one of the best years in IPL, but just purely on his talent, he can actually win you a game. What Stoinis did, he can actually do the same for Rajasthan Royals as well. But when all the four are available, unfortunately, David Miller has to come out, even if he's in fabulous form.
Yeah, that's the point the author makes, Deep. The need of the franchise. Do you need, in a franchise like Rajasthan Royals, a top order batsman, an anchor sort of batsman like Stephen Smith, when you have the likes of Butler and Sanju Samson and Ben Stokes when he's back? Or do you need someone like David Miller who can give you that Marcus Stoinis sort of innings that we saw the other day? So the argument more pertinent to Rajasthan?
Listen, I'll be honest. I mean, R- David Miller, when was the last time you actually saw him do something like that on surfaces where the ball stopped even a little bit? I
Sure.
mean, to be very honest, I have my doubts when on subcontinental pitches. Yes, Chinnaswamy, if you have surfaces like that, for example, this surface will suit him just fine. But this surface will not be like this after you've played a couple of games on it, right? So if you're expecting the season to be on an average 150, 155 kind of a average season, then I would be looking at Steve Smith more, even in this RR. I understand what Gautam just mentioned. I think that's a very, very valid point, because then what happens is Josh Butler comes in, then Robin Uthappa has to go and bat at 5. I completely agree and understand that point. But I still think Steve Smith, for on surfaces where the ball is stopping a bit and the ball is turning, I think brings value to the team. And also a youngish side like this, where you have youngsters and all that, I think he's a good mentor kind of or a good leader in that group.
All right. The other question is, of course, whether when you make an overseas player captain, do you actually deprive yourself of the option of playing that round, or is that just something we make up? The season when David Warner was back, Gotham for the Sunrisers, Kane Williamson was still the appointed captain, and at times he didn't make the 11, and Tom Moody was perfectly fine with it. Just because you're captain doesn't mean you play. So is that another school of thought, that just because you're captain, that doesn't mean you have to play in every game?
No, they've done that last time with Ajinkya Rane. I'm not sure whether they can do the same with someone like Steve Smith. And that is a problem, and that's the reason why I said that probably I would have given it to Josh Butler, and then I probably would have had an Indian vice captain as well, someone like Sanju Samson. Look what Delhi has done. Delhi has given it to a young cricketer, Shreyas Iyer, the captaincy. Kings 11 has given it to KL Rahul. Why not Sanju Samson? And probably have people like Josh Butler, people like Steve Smith actually helping him out and making him a leader as well. Because if you're trying to build your franchise around a young player, there is no better player than Sanju Samson, because he's been with the franchise for such a long time. Have him as a leader and probably just help, give him that help from outside as well, or probably from some senior cricketers as well. So having an overseas captain, it's very difficult unless and until you don't have anyone. Probably I don't see anyone in SRH, but I do see someone in Rajasthan Royals, and that is Sanju Samson.
Yes, Deep, something to add to that?
I mean, I think that's a very valid point, because you're also grooming, the next generation of leaders, and what you mentioned about, franchises building a team around youngsters. I think that's a very, very valid point. Now, the other aspect which we need to consider is this team is heavily dependent on their overseas, right? You've got Josh Butler, Ben Stokes, Jofra Archer, your 3 match winners, overseas match winners. Now, I mean, keeping that in mind, would you want a kind of a biggish name to control them? Or, I mean, that's a genuine question that I'm asking. Are you comfortable with a youngster leading that, or would you want a somebody who has leadership experience to kind of lead
Yeah,
a
I think the point Gautam makes is you have Butler who probably ticks those boxes and would
no,
still
but
play.
fair enough. I'm saying if Butler is there, it's fine. But I'm otherwise saying, apart from Butler, I'm saying if you want
Yeah,
an Indian.
No, just want to add something. See, you never know what's going to happen in the next auction, because it's going to be a bigger auction. Whether you will have Steve Smith, whether you will have Ben Stokes or Josh Butler. So this probably was the right season to give it to Sanju Samson, because you've got people like Josh Butler and Steve Smith helping him out and probably making him a much better leader for next year as well. So you got to look for future as well. And the reason is, if, for example, Steve Smith doesn't have a great IPL, will you actually retain him, or will you actually let him go? If you let him go, then who's going to be your next leader? So you're actually
Yeah.
searching for another one. So this was probably the best year to give it to someone or an Indian young cricketer, and let Steve Smith and Josh Butler help him out and make him a leader for probably next 5 or 6 years.
The last conversation, last question. I'm loving this so much. I'm going into overtime. Game's already begun, but whatever. Last question on this is whether it's important to have this relationship between captain and coach. And Andrew McDonald comes in, highly reputed in the coaching circuit. He's now been given a big responsibility in Rajasthan. And whether he feels that the better, or the franchise feels that the better relation or the better chemistry would be between a McDonald and a Steve Smith. Would that in any way play into the calculations of the franchise, Gautam?
So it's an Indian Premier League. So it's dominated by Indian players. As simple as it gets. It's
Yeah.
Indian Premier League. It's not big bash. So you
Yeah.
got to build a relationship with whatever captain you get. Coach
Yeah.
doesn't decide the captain.
Yeah.
It's the captain who needs to decide the coach. What kind of a coach does he want? So coach should not have that right that he decides who he wants to work with. Whatever he gets, he needs to work with it. So that's why I said that as simple as it gets, you got to have an Indian captain, young guy, look for the future, probably give him that extra responsibility and get the best out of him.
Yep.
Quickly, I'll just add one thing. We tend to forget that, in a squad of 22, there are what, 6, 7 overseas, but rest of them are Indians. And as Gautam very rightly put, it is Indian Premier League. So yeah, I rest my case there.
There's always something good that comes from me extending time, and that is that we have a new point of discussion, which is Steve Smith has come out to open. This is very interesting. Yashasvi Jaiswal and Steve Smith chosen as the openers, which means I guess the entire batting order changes. Gautam, just a quick thought on that. Steve Smith opening the batting for Rajasthan.
Nothing to say. I'm actually surprised, to be honest. I don't know what kind of a theory was there, because if Robin Uthappa, as I mentioned it to you, Robin Uthappa, what number would you want him to bat? Either you make him bat as a finisher or you actually open the batting with him. Steve Smith and Yashasvi Jaiswal, I don't understand, to be honest.
I think what they're thinking is not to shuffle too much. When Joss Butler comes in, Steve Smith goes back, and Robin plays where he's playing right now. So Robin does not. So not too many people change their position. So I think that's what they're thinking. So as soon as Butler comes in, he goes to 4 or he goes to 5 or whatever, and everyone else still play in their positions. I think that could be.
Just one thing. If someone like Ryan Parag and Rahul Tewatia has a good game, then Joss Butler comes in. Where does Joss Butler go then? And if even David Miller has a great game,
does he come in place of Uthappa then, or Joss Butler? So if you're saying just Joss Butler come in, then David Miller sits out, even if he has a good game, you think?
I mean,
my point is probably with Steve Smith opening the batting.
Yeah,
I think the entire batting order, there's no certainty who's going to bat at what number.
Right. All right, brilliant. This is like that KL Rahul argument, right? You want him to play at number 4 or 5. So even if there is an injury in the opening stand, you don't put him up. You're like, now just play there. Don't shuffle up and down, even though you're capable to. You've got both sides to it. Let's see if it works. It should make for a very appetizing conversation at halftime. Gautam Gambhir, thank you very much. Deeptas Gupta, always a pleasure. Let's pick up this conversation at halftime to see how this unusual tactic of Steve Smith and Yashasvi Jaiswal opening for Rajasthan pans out, and plenty more as the first 20 overs of Rajasthan will give us, I'm sure, to talk about on Whirlpool Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Dell. Bye-bye.